The moon is climbing high. Lay down your double-bladed axe, let the restless world go by. The fires are softly glowing, the old stones hold their breath. Come sit beside me, Msoul. Tonight we cheat the night of death. No quest to chase, no wars tonight, no need to prove your might. The road can wait till morning comes. For now, we're by the firelight. So tuck in and chill, my Msoul. The witching hour's begun. Ghost stories, dreams, and mysteries. A little mischief just for fun. Stay for a tale, stay for a while. Stay till your eyes grow still. From Venus, Callida's haunted halls. Welcome to tuck in and chill. I wandered through the frozen lands, a mercenary alone, until I found forgotten ruins and made them into home. Now ancient halls hold lanterns, and weary souls may rest. The brave and mortal souls arrive and stay for what they like best. Some travel on at sunrise, some linger through the years, but every wandering soul is welcome through laughter, dreams, and fears. So tuck in and chill, my soul. The witching hour's begun. Ghost stories, dreams, and mysteries. A little mischief just for fun. Stay for a tale, stay for a while. Stay till your eyes grow still. From Venus, Callida's haunted halls. Welcome to tuck in and chill.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Venus Callida, and we are back to the OG format for Tuck In and Chill Nights. I've put us back to the original hours where I used to stream till late at night to take you across to the witching hour and into the land of slumber. I'm here tonight with a ghost story, and it's a mystery as well. And tonight we're going to spend our evening with a yellow cat and a deserted ship. Now let me explain. Tonight I'm going to read to you a story. So for those of you who struggle with sleep as I do, or you might be home just having dinner, hanging out with a friend, tucking in with a fur baby, and you just need to relax for a few minutes, you can spend that time here with me. And I'm putting on my storytelling voice right now because Tuckin' and Chills were always about telling some ghost stories, sharing some chit-chat, feeding off each other, talking about our day, talking about the strange things that go on, the people that are in their moments, to entertain each other and to help us relax, chill. So get cozy, get comfy, get into a comfortable position. You can close your eyes, lay back and listen from my voice to your ears, or you can focus in on something on my screen. Now tonight I won't be showing you any extra visuals, but perhaps you will like my ghostly lamplight, or my very enchanted candlelight, and I'm bringing you into one of my bedrooms here in my ruins that I have repurposed for my own uses. And of course, you're always welcome to tuck in and chill with me. Now, if anybody wants to do more than lurk, you can go ahead and you can share your stories as well. But for the first part this evening, I'm going to do this the OG way. I'm going to read to you a story. This story will take a little bit of time tonight. This is not meant to be an ASMR story, just a storytelling, an adult sleep aid story to help you drift into dreamland, go visit the Sandman, cheat the night of death. That's alright, I keep the 4 Apocalypse Riders with me in WoW whenever I'm in combat, so they get the night off tonight. So, as the song says, I put down my double-bladed axe, you know, Shadowmourne, my favorite weapon. And I, Venus Callida, am going to tell you the tale of this, the Yellow Cat. It comes from the early 1920s, published in a book in 1922, and so it's in the public domain. And it's written by a man named Wilbur Daniel Steele. And I realized those Daniel Steele novels, maybe they borrowed from his name, because I think that's a pen name for a ghostwriter out there. But Wilbur Daniel Steele has a story to tell about this ship whose model is here next to my yellow cat. So take a deep breath, Msoul, get yourself cozy, get yourself comfy, bring your favorite drink, hydrate, that's very important. I'm having just a little more than water tonight, hee hee. And let's begin. The Yellow Cat. At least once in my life I have had the good fortune to board a deserted vessel at sea. I say good fortune because it has left me the memory of a singular impression. I've felt a ghost of the same thing 2 or 3 times since then, when peeping through the doorway of an abandoned house. Now, that vessel was not dead. She was a good vessel, a sound vessel, even a handsome vessel in her blunt-bowed, coastwise way. Excuse me. She sailed under 4 lowers across as blue and glittering a sea as I ever had known, and there was not a point in her sailing that one could lay a finger upon as wrong. And yet, passing that schooner at 2 miles, one knew somehow that no hand was on her wheel. Sometimes I can imagine a vessel stricken like that, moving over the empty spaces of the sea, carrying it off quite well were it not for that indefinable suggestion of a stagger. And I can think of all those ocean gods, in whom no landsman will ever believe, looking at one another and tapping their foreheads with just the shadow of a smile. I wonder if they all scream, these ships that have lost their souls. Mine screamed. We heard her voice, like nothing I've ever heard before, when we rode under her counter to read her name. The Marionette, it was, of Halifax. I remember how it made me shiver, there in the full blaze of the sun, to hear her going on so, railing and screaming in that stark fashion. And I remember, too, how our footsteps, pattering through the vacant internals in search of that haggard utterance, made me think of the footsteps of hurrying warders roused in the night. And we found a parrot in a cage. And that was all. It wanted water. We gave it water and went away to look things over, keeping pretty close together, all of us. In the quarters, the table was set for 4. 2 men had begun to eat by the evidence of the plates. Nowhere in the vessel was there any sign of disorder, except one sea chest broken out, evidently in haste. Her papers were gone, and the stern davits were empty. That's how the case stood that day, and that is how it is stood to this day. I saw this same marionette a week later, tied up at a Hoboken dock, where she awaited news of her owners. But even there, in the midst of all the waterfront bustle, I could not get rid of the feeling that she was still very far away, in a sort of shippish other world. The thing happens now and then. Sometimes half a dozen years will go by without the solitary wanderer of this sort crossing the ocean paths, and then, in a single season, perhaps several of them will turn up. Vacant waifs, impassive and mysterious, a quarter column of tidings tucked away on the second page of the evening paper. That is where I read the story about the Abbey Rose. I recollect how painfully awkward and out of place it looked there, cramped between ruled black edges and smelling of landmark ink. This thing that had to do essentially with air and vast colored spaces. I forget the exact words of the heading, something like abandoned craft picked up at sea, but I still have the clipping itself, couched in the formal patter of the marine news writer. The first hint of another mystery of the sea came in today when the schooner Abbey Rose dropped anchor in the upper river, manned only by a crew of one. It appears that the outbound freighter Mercury sighted the Abbey Rose off Block Island on Thursday last, acting in a suspicious manner. A boat party sent aboard found the schooner in perfect order and condition, sailing under 4 lower sails, the topsails being pursed up to the mastheads but not stowed, with the exception of a yellow cat. The vessel was found to be utterly deserted, though her small boat still hung in the davits. No evidence of disorder were visible in any part of the craft. The dishes were washed up, the stove in the galley was still slightly warm to the touch, everything in its proper place with the exception of the vessel's papers, which were not to be found. All indications being for fair weather, Captain Romer of the Mercury detailed 2 of his company to bring the find back to this port, a distance of 115 miles. The only man available with a knowledge of the fore and aft rig was Stuart McCord, the second engineer. A seaman by the name of Bjornson was sent with him. McCord arrived this noon after a very heavy voyage of 5 days, reporting that Bjornson had fallen overboard while shaking out of the foretop sail. McCord himself showed evidence of the hardships as he passed through, being almost a nervous wreck. Stuart McCord! Yes, Stuart McCord would have a knowledge of the fore and aft rig, or of almost anything else connected with the affairs of the sea. It happened that I used to know this fellow. I had even been quite chummy with him in the old days. That is, to the extent of drinking too many beers with him in certain hot country ports. I remembered him as a stolid and deliberate sort of person, with an amazing hodgepodge of learning, a stamp collection, and a theory about the effects of tropical sunshine on the European race, to which I have listened half of more than one night, stretched out, in my birthday suit, on a freighter's deck. He had not impressed me with a fellow who would be bothered by his nerves. And there was another thing about this story which struck me as rather odd. Perhaps it is a relic of my seafaring days, but I have always been a conscientious reader of the weather reports, and I could remember no weather in the past sufficient enough to shake a man out of a top, especially a man by the name of Bjornson, a thoroughgoing seafaring name. I was destined to hear more of this in the evening from the ancient boatman who rowed me out to the upper river. He had been to sea on his day. He knew enough to wonder about this thing, even to indulge in a little superstitious awe about it. No, sirree, something happened to them poor chaps, and another thing. I fancied I heard a seabird whining in the darkness overhead. A shape moved out of the gloom ahead, passed to the left and lofty and silent, and merged once more with the gloom behind, a barge at anchor, with the seagrass clinging around her waterline. Funny about that other chap, the old fellow speculated. Bjornson, I believe he called him. Now, that story sounds to me kind of... He feathered his oars with a suspicious jerk and peered at me. This McCord, a friend of yours? He inquired. In a way, I said. Well, he turned his thwart to squint ahead. There she is, he announced with something of relief, I thought. It was hard at that time of night to make anything but a black blotch out of the Abbey Rose. Of course, I could see that she was pot-bellied, like the rest of the coastwise sisterhood, and the McCord had not stowed his topsails. I could make them out, pursed at the mastheads and hanging down as far as the cross-trees, like huge overripe pears. Then I recollected that he had found them, so probably had not touched them since. An odd way to leave tops, it seemed to me. I could see also the glow tip of a cigar floating restlessly along the farther rail. I called out, McCord! Oh, McCord! The spark came swimming across the deck. Hello. Hello there, and there was a note of querulous uneasiness there that somehow jarred with my remembrance of this man. Ridgway, I explained. He echoed the name uncertainly, still with a suggestion of peevishness hanging over the rail and peering down at us. Oh, by gracious, he exclaimed abruptly. I'm glad to see you, Ridgway. I had a boatman coming out before this, but I guess he'll be along. By gracious, I'm glad. I'll not keep you, I told the gnome, putting the money in his palm and reaching for the rail. McCord lent me a hand on my wrist. Then, when I stood squarely on the deck beside him, he appeared to forget my presence, leaned forward heavily on the rail, and squinted after my waning boatman. Ahoy, boat! He called out sharply, shielding his lips with his hand. His violence seemed to bring him out of the blank, for he fell immediately to puffing strongly on his cigar and explaining in rather a shame-voiced way that he was beginning to think of his own boatman had passed him by. Coming and having it, he urged with an abrupt heartiness, clapping me on the shoulder. So I did not say what I had intended. I was thinking that in the old days, McCord had made rather a fetish of touching nothing stronger than beer. Neither had he been of the shoulder-clapping sort. So you've got something aboard? I shifted. Deadman's liquor, he chuckled. It gave me an odd feeling in the pit of my stomach to hear him. I began to wish I had not come, but there was nothing for it now but to follow him into the after-house. The cabin itself might have been 9 feet square, and with 3 bunks occupying the port side. To the right opened the master's stateroom, and a door in the forward bulkhead led to the galley. I took in these features at a casual glance, and then, hardly knowing why I did it, I began to examine them with greater care. Have you a match? I asked. My voice sounded very small, as though something unheard of happened to all the air. Smoke? He asked. I'll get you a cigar. No. I took the proffered match and scratched it on the side of the galley door and passed out. There seemed to be 1,000 pans there, throwing my match back at me from every wall of the box-like compartment. Even McCord's eyes in the doorway were large and round and shining. He probably thought me crazy. Perhaps I was a little. I ran the match close along the ceiling and came upon a rusty hook a little aport of the center. There, I said. Was there anything hanging from this, say, a parrot or something, McCord? The match burned my fingers and went out. What do you mean? McCord demanded from the doorway. I got myself back into the comfortable yellow glow of the cabin before I answered, and then it was a question. Do you happen to know anything about this craft's personal history? No. What are you talking about? Why? Well, I do, I offered. For one thing, she's changed her name. And it happens this isn't the first time she's... Well, oh, damn it all. 14 years ago, I helped pick up this whatever she is off the Virginia Capes in the same sort of condition. There you are. I was yapping like a nerve-strung puppy. McCord leaned forward with his hands on the table, bringing his face beneath the fan of the hanging lamp. For the first time I could mark how shockingly it had changed. It was almost colorless. The jaw had somehow lost its old-time security, and his eyes seemed to be loose in their sockets. I'd expected him to start at my announcement. He only blinked at the light. I'm not surprised, he marked at length, after what I've seen and heard. He lifted his fist and brought it down with a sudden crash on the table. Man, let's have a nip. He was off before I could say a word, fumbling out of sight in the narrow stateroom. Presently he reappeared, holding a glass in either hand and a dark bottle hugging between his elbows. Putting the glasses down, he held up the bottle between his eyes and the lamp, and its shadow, falling across his face, green and luminous at the core, gave him a ghastly look, like a mutilation or an unspeakable birthmark. He shook the bottle gently and chuckled, his dead man's liquor again. Then he poured 2 half glasses of the clear gin, swallowing his portion, sat down. A parrot, he mused, a little of the liquor's color creeping into his cheeks. No, this time it was a cat, Ridgway. A yellow cat. And she was... I caught him up. What's happened? What's become of her? Vanished. Evaporated. I've been seeing her since the night before last when I caught her trying to lower the boat. Stop it. It was I who banged the table now. Oh, without any of the reserve of decency. McCord! Okay, you're drunk. Drunk! I tell you, a cat. Let a cat throw you off your head like this? She's probably hiding out below this minute, on affairs of her own. Hiding? He regarded me for a moment with the odd superiority of the damned. I guess you don't realize how many times I've been over this hulk, from decks to keelson, with the mallet and a foot rule. Or fallen overboard? I shifted with less assurance. Like the fellow Bjornson. By the way, McCord, I stopped there on account of the look in his eyes. He reached out, poured himself a shot, swallowed it, and got up to shuffle about the confined quarters. I watched the restless circuits, my friend in his jumping shadow. He stopped and bent forward to examine a Sunday supplement chromo-tacked on the wall, and the 2 heads drew together, as though there was something to whisper. Of a sudden I seemed to hear the old gnome croaking. Now that story sounds to me kind of McCord straightened up and turned to face me. What do you know about Bjornson? He demanded. Well, only what they had you saying in the papers, I told him. Pshaw! He snapped his fingers, tossing the affair aside. I found her log, he announced in quite another voice. You did, eh? I judged from what I read in the paper that there wasn't a sign. No. I happened on the other night, under the mattress in there. He jerked his head toward the stateroom. Wait. I heard him knocking things over in the dark and mumbling at them. After a moment he came out and threw on the table a log. He went on. I guess I was going it a little strong. At least I wouldn't want that sort of log found around my vessel. Let's call it a personal record. Here's his picture, and somewhere. He shook the book by its back, and a common Kodak blueprint fluttered to the table. It was the likeness of a solid man with a paunch, a huge square beard, small squinting eyes, and a bald head. What do you make of him? A writing chap? From the nose down, yes, I estimated. From the nose up, he'll tend to his own business if you will tend to yours strictly. McCord slapped his thigh. By gracious, that's the fellow. He hates the people from the East. He knows as well as anything he ought not to put down in black and white how intolerably he hates them. And yet he must sneak off to his cubbyhole and suck his pencil. And how is Stevenson? Has it, the agony of composition, you remember? Can you imagine the fellow Ridgway bundling down here with the fever on him? About people from the East, I broke in? I think he said something about people from, like, China? Yes. The cook. He must have been. I gather he wasn't the master's pick by the reading matter here. Probably clapped onto him like the owners. Shipped it from one of theirs others at the last moment. It's an odd trick. Listen. He picked up the book, running his fingers through the pages. And running over the pages with a selective thumb, he read out. August 2nd. First part, moderate southwesterly breeze. And so forth. But here he comes to it. Anything can happen to a man at sea, even a funeral. In special, to a man from the East, who's of no account to social welfare here, being a barbarian as I look at it. Something as a philosopher, you see. And did you get the reserve in that even a funeral? An artist, I tell you. But wait, let me catch him a bit wilder here. He continued reading. I'll get that mustard color. This is back a couple of days. Never can hear the coming in them carpet slippers, turning around and found him standing right to my back this morning. Could have stuck a knife into me easy. Look here, says I, and fetched him a tap at the ear, and we'll make him walk louder next time, I warrant. He could have struck a knife into me easy. My, clear case of moral funk, I should say. Can you imagine this fellow, Ridgway? Yes, oh yes. I was ready with a phrase of my own. Man handicapped with an imagination. You see, he can't quite understand this, quote-unquote barbarian, who has him beaten by about 30 centuries of civilization. His imagination has to have something to chew on, something to hit a tap on the ear, you know. By gracious, that's the ticket. McCord pounded his knee again, and now we've got another chap going to pieces. Peters, he calls him, refuses to eat dinner on August the 3rd, claiming he caught the cook making passes over the chowder pot with his thumb. Can you believe it, Ridgway? Is this very cabin here? And then he went on with a suggestion of haste, as though he had somehow made a slip. Well, at any rate, the disease seems to be catching. Next day it's Bach, the second seaman, and who begins to feel the gaff. Listen, he wrote this. Bach, he comes to me tonight, complaining he's being watched. He claims has got the evil eye, says he can see through 2-inch bulkhead and the like. The cook's laying in his bunk, turned the other way. Why don't you go aboard of him, says I. The Dutcher says nothing, but he goes over to his own bunk and feels under the straw. When he comes back, he's looking odd. My God, says he, the devil has swept my gun. Now, if that's true, there is going to be hell to pay in this vessel very quick. I figure I'm still master of this vessel. The evil eye, I grunted. Conscience has gone wrong there somewhere. Not altogether, Ridgway. I can see that. Cookman, he's peeking. Now just figure yourself, say 8,000 miles from home, out on the water alone with a crowd of heathen fanatics crazy from fright, looking around for guns and so on. Don't you believe you'd keep an eye around the corners, kinda, eh? I'll bet a hat he was taking it all in, lying there in his bunk. Turned the other way, eh? I pity the poor cuss. Well, there's only one entry after that. He's good and mad. Here's what he said. Now, by God, this is the end. My gun's gone too, right out from under lock and key, by golly. I've been talking with Bach this morning not to let on. I had him in to clean my lamp. There's more ways than one, he says, and so do I. McCord closed the book and dropped it on the table. Fini, he said. The rest is blank paper. Well, I will confess I felt much better than I had for some time past. There's one mystery of the sea gone to pot, at any rate. And now, if you don't mind, I think I'll have another of your nips, McCord. He pushed my glass across the table and got up. Behind his back, his shadow rose to scour the corners of the room, like an incorruptible sentinel. I've got to take up my gin, watching him. After an uneasy minute or so, he came back to the table and pressed the tip of a forefinger on the book. Ridgway, he said, you don't seem to understand. This particular mystery of the sea hasn't been scratched yet. Not even scratched, Ridgway. He sat down and leaned forward, fixing me with a didactic finger. What happened? Well, I have an idea. The quote-unquote barbarian got them when it came to the pinch. And left the remains over the side? I should say. and they came back and got the barbarian and led him over the side, eh? There were none left, you remember. Oh, good Lord, I don't know. I flared with a childish resentment at this catechizing of his, but his finger remained there, challenging. I do, he announced. That cook put them over the side, as we've said, and then, after that, he died, of wounds about the head. So? I had still sarcasm. You will remember, he went on, that the skipper did not happen to mention a cat, a yellow cat, in his confessions? McCord, I begged him, please drop it. Why in thunder should he mention a cat? True. Why should he mention a cat? I think one of the reasons why he should not mention a cat is because there did not happen to be a cat aboard that time. Oh, all right. I reached out and pulled the bottle to my side of the table. Then I took out my watch. If you don't mind, I suggested, I think we better go ashore. I gotta get my office rather early in the morning. What do you say? He said nothing for the moment, but his finger had dropped. He leaned back and stared straight into the core of the light above, his eyes squinting. He would have been from the south of China, probably. He seemed to be talking to himself. There's a considerable sprinkling of the belief down there. I've heard it's an uncanny business, this transmigration of souls. Personally, I'd had enough of it. McCord's fingers came groping across the table for the bottle. I picked it up hastily and let it go through the open companionway, where it died in faint gurgle out somewhere on the river. Now, I said to him, shaking the vagrant wrist, either you come ashore with me, or you go in there and get under the blankets. You're drunk, McCord. Drunk. Do you hear me? Ridgway, he pronounced, bringing his eyes down to me and speaking very slowly. You're a fool. If you can't see better than that, I'm not drunk, I'm sick. I haven't slept for 3 nights, and now I can't. And you say you... He went to pieces very suddenly, jumped up, pounded the legs of his chair on the decking, and shouted at me. And you say that you landlubber, you office coddler, you're so comfortably sure that everything in the world is cut and dried. Come back to the water again and learn how to wonder. And stop talking like a damn fool. You know where... Is there anything in your municipal budget to tell me where Bjornson went? Listen! He sat down, waving me to do the same, and went on with a sort of desperate repression. It happened on the first night, after we took this hellion. I'd stood the wheel most of the afternoon, off and on, that is, because she sails herself uncommonly well. Just put her on a reach, you know, and she carries it off pretty well. I know, I nodded. Well, we mugged up about 7 o'clock. There was a good deal of canned stuff in the galley, and Bjornson wasn't a bad hand with the kettle. A thoroughgoing, square head he was, tall and lean and yellow-haired with little fat, round cheeks and a white mustache. Not a bad chap at all. He took the wheel to stand till midnight, and I turned in, but I didn't drop off for quite a spell. I could hear his boots wandering around over my head, padding off forward, coming back again. I heard him whistling now and then, an outlandish air. Occasionally, I could see the shadow of his head waving in a block of moonlight that lay on the decking right down there in front of the stateroom door. It came from the companion. The cabin was dark because we were going easy on the oil. They hadn't left a great deal, for some reason or other. McCord leaned back and described with his finger where the illumination had cut the decking. There! I could see it from my bunk, as I lay, you understand. I must have almost dropped off once when I heard him fiddling around out here in the cabin, and then he said something in a whisper, just to find out if I was still awake, I suppose. I asked him what the matter was. He came and poked his head in the door. The breeze is going out, says he. I was wondering if we couldn't get a little more sail on her. Only I can't give you this fierce squarehead tang. How about the tops, he suggested. I was so sleepy I didn't care, and I told him so. All right, he says. But I thought I might shake out of one of them tops. Then I heard him blow at something outside. Scat, you! And then, this cat's gonna set me crazy, Mr. McCord. He says, following me around everywhere. He gave a kick, and I saw something yellow floating across the moonlight. It never made a sound, just floated. You wouldn't have known it ever lit anywhere, just like... McCord stopped and drummed a few beats on the table with his fist. As though to bring himself back to the straight narrative. I went to sleep, he began again. I dreamed about a lot of things. I woke up sweating. You know how glad you are to wake up after a dream like that and find none of it is so? Well, I turned over and settled to go off again, and then I got a little more awake and thought to myself it must be pretty near time for me to go on deck. I scratched a match and... I looked at my watch. That fellow must be either a good chap or asleep, I said to myself, and I rolled out quick and I went above decks. He wasn't at the wheel. I called him. Bjornson. Bjornson! No answer. McCord was really telling his story now. He paused for a long moment, one hand shielding an ear, and his eyeballs turned far up. That was the first time I really went over the hulk, he ran on. I got out a lantern and started at the forward end of the hold, and I worked aft, and there was nothing there. Not a sign or a stain or a scrap of clothing or anything. You may believe that I began to feel funny inside. I went over the decks and the rails and the house itself inch by inch. Not a trace. I went out aft again. The cat sat on the wheel box, washing her face. I hadn't noticed the scar on her head before, running down between her ears. Rather a new scar, 3 or 4 days old, I should say. It looked ghastly and blue-white in the flat moonlight. I ran over and grabbed her up and heaved her over the side. You understand how upset I was? Now, you know cat will squirm around and grab something when you hold it like that, generally speaking. This one didn't. She just drooped and began to purr and looked up at me of the moonlit eyes under the scar. I dropped her on the deck and backed off. Remember, Bjornson had kicked her. I didn't want anything like that happening to... The narrator turned upon me with a sudden heat, leaned over and shook his finger before my face. There you go, he cried. You, with your stout stone buildings and your policemen and your neighborhood church. You're so damn sure. But I'd just like to see you out there alone, with the moon setting, and all the lights gone tall and odd, and a shipmate. He lifted his hand overhead, and fingertips pressed together, and then suddenly separated as though he had released an impalpable something into the air. Go on, I told him. I felt more like you do when it got light again, and warm, and sunshiny, and... I say, bah, to the whole business. I even fed the cat, and I slept a while on the roof of the house. I was so sure. We lay dead most of the day without a streak of air. But that night? Well, that night I hadn't got over being sure yet. It takes quite a jolt, you know, to shake loose several dozen generations. A fair, steady breeze that come along, and the glass was high. She was staying herself like a doll, so I figured I could get a little rest lying below in the bunk, even if I didn't sleep. I tried not to sleep in case something should come up, a squall or the like. But I think I must have dropped off once or twice. I remember I heard something fiddling around in the galley, and I hollered, "Scat!" and everything was quiet again. I rolled over and lay on my left side, and staring at the square moonlight outside my door for a long time. You'll think it was a dream, what I saw there. Go on, I said. Call this tabletop the spot of light, roughly, he said. He placed a fingertip about the middle of the forehead edge of the drew a slowly toward the line toward the center. Here, what will correspond with the upper side of the companionway, there came down very gradually the shadow of a tail. I watched it streaking out there across the deck, wiggling the slightest bit now and then. When it had come down about halfway across the light, the solid part of the animal, its shadow, you understand? It began to appear, quite big and round, but how could she hang there, done up in a ball from the hatch? He shifted his finger back to the edge of the table and puddled it around to signify the shadowed body. I fished my gun out from behind my back. You see, I was feeling funny again. Then I started to slide 1 foot over the edge of the bunk, always with my eyes on that shadow. Now I swear I didn't make the sound of a pin dropping, but I had no more than moved a muscle when that shadowed thing twisted itself around in a flash. And there, on the floor before me, was the profile of a man's head, upside down, listening. A man's head with a tail of hair. McCord got up hastily and stepped over in front of the stateroom door, where he bent down and scratched a match. See, he said, holding the tiny flame above a splintered scar on the boards. You wouldn't think a man would be fool enough to shoot at a shadow. He came back and sat down. It seemed to me all hell had shaken loose. You've no idea, Ridgway, the rumpus a gun raises in a box like this. I found out afterward the slug ricocheted into the galley, bringing down a couple of pans. That helped. Oh, yes, I got out of here quick enough. I stood there, half out of the companion, with my hands on the hatch and the gun between them, and my shadow running off across the top of the house, shivering before my eyes like a dry leaf. There wasn't a whisper of sound in the world. Just the pale water floating past the sails, towering up like a pair of twittering ghosts. And everything that crazy color. Well, in a minute I saw it, just abreast of the mainmast, crouched down in the shadow of the weather rail, sneaking off forward very slowly. This time I took a good long sight before I let go. Did you ever happen to see black powdered smoke in the moonlight? It puffed out perfectly round, like a big, pale balloon, this did, and for a second something was bounding through it. Without a sound, you understand. Something a shade solider than the smoke and big as a cow. It looked to me. It passed from the weather side to the lean duck behind the sweep of the mainsail, like that. The cord snapped his thumb and forefinger under the light. Go on, I said. What did you do then? McCord regarded me for an instant from beneath his lids, uncertain. His fist hung above the table. You're... He hesitated, his lips working vacantly. A forefinger came out of the fist and gesticulated before my face. If you're laughing, why, damn me, I'll... Go on, I repeated. What did you do then? I followed the thing. He was still watching me sullenly. I got up and went forward along the roof of the house so as to have an eye on either rail. You understand, this business had to be done with. I kept straight along. Every shadow I wasn't absolutely sure of, I made sure of, point blank. Boom. And I rounded the thing up at the very stern, sitting on the butt of the bowsprit, Ridgway, washing her yellow face under the moon. I didn't make any bones about it this time. I put the bad end of that gun against the scar on her head and squeezed the trigger. It snicked on an empty shell. I tell you a fact. I was almost deafened by the report that didn't come. She followed me aft. I couldn't get away from her. I went and sat on the wheel box, and she came and sat on the edge of the house, facing me. And there we stayed for upward of an hour, without moving. Finally she went over and stuck her paw in the water pan I'd set out for her. Then she raised her head and looked at me and yowled. At sundown there'd be 2 quarts of water in that pan. You wouldn't think a cat could get away with 2 quarts of water and... He broke off again, and he considered me with a sort of weary defiance. What's the use? He spread out his hands in a gesture of hopelessness. I knew you wouldn't believe it, and then I started. You couldn't. It would be kind of blasphemy against the sacred institution of pavements. You're too damn smug, Ridgway. I can't shake you. You haven't sat 2 days and 2 nights keeping your eyes open by sheer teeth gritting till they got used to it and wouldn't shut anymore. When I tell you I found that yellow thing snooping around the davits and 3 bites off the boat fall, loosened out, playing on deck, you grinned behind your collar. When I tell you she padded off forward and evaporated, flickering back to hell that hasn't been seen since, then why, you explain to yourself that I'm drunk. I tell you I'm not. He jerked his head back abruptly and turned to face the companionway, his lips still parted. He listened for a moment. Then he shook himself out of it and went on. I tell you, Ridgway, I've been over this hulk with a foot rule. There's not a cubic inch I haven't accounted for. Not a plank eye. This time he got up and moved a step towards the companion. He stood with his head bent forward and slightly to the side. After what might have been 20 seconds of this, he whispered, Do you hear it? Far and far away down the reach, a ferry boat lifted its infinitesimal wail. Then the silence of the night river came down once more, profound and inscrutable. A corner of the wick above my head sputtered a little, and that was all. Hear what? I whispered back. He lifted a cautious finger toward the opening. Somebody. Listen. The man's faculties must have been keyed up to the pitch of his nerves, for to me the night remained as voiceless as a subterranean cavern. I became intensely irritated with him. Within my mind, I cried out against this infatuated pantomime of his. And then, of a sudden, there was a sound. The dying rumor of a ripple. Somewhere in the outside darkness, as though an object had been let into the water with extreme care. You heard? I nodded. The ticking of the watch in my vest pocket came to my ears, shucking off the leisurely seconds, while McCord's fingernails gnawed at the palms of his hands. The man was really sick. He wheeled on me and cried out, "Oh my God, Ridgway, why don't we go out?" I, for one, refused to be a fool. I passed him and climbed out of the opening. He followed far enough to lean his elbows on the hatch, his feet and legs still within the secure glow of the cabin. You see, there's nothing. My wave of assurance was possibly a little overdone. Over there, he muttered, jerking his head toward the shore lights. Something. Swimming. I moved to the corner of the house and listened. River thieves, I argued. The place is full of Ridgway. Look behind you. Perhaps it is the pavements, but no matter. I'm not ordinarily a jumping sort. Yet there was something in the quality of that voice beyond my shoulder that brought the sweat stinging through the pores of my scalp, even while I was in the act of turning. A cat sat there on the hatch, expressionless and immobile in the gloom. I did not say anything. I turned and went below. McCord was there already, standing on the farther side of the table. After a moment or so, the cat followed and sat on her haunches at the foot of the ladder and stared at us without winking. I think she wants something to eat, I said to McCord. He lit a lantern and went out into the galley. Returning with a chunk of salt beef, he threw it into the farther corner. The cat went over and began to tear at it, her muscles playing with convulsive shadow lines under the sagging yellow hide. And now it was she who listened, to something beyond the reach of even McCord's faculties, her neck stiff and her ears flattened. I looked at McCord and found him brooding at the animal with a sort of listless malevolence. Quick! She has kittens somewhere about. I shook his elbow sharply. When she starts now. You don't seem to understand, he mumbled. It wouldn't be any use. She had turned now and was making for the ladder with the soundless agility of a race. I grasped McCord's wrist and dragged him after me, the lantern banging against his knees. When we came up, the cat was already amidships, a scarcely discernible shadow at the margin of our lantern's ring. She stopped and looked back at us with her luminous eyes, appeared to hesitate, uneasy at our pursuit of her, shifted here and there with quick, soft bounds, and stopped to fawn with her back arched at the foot of the mast. Then she was off with an amazing suddenness into the shadows forward. Lively now! I yelled at McCord. He came pounding along behind me, still protesting that it was of no use. Abreast of the foremast, I took the lantern from him to hold above my head. You see? He complained, peering here and there over the illuminated deck. I tell you, Ridgway, this thing... But my eyes were in another quarter, and I slapped him on the shoulder. An engineer to the core, I cried at him. Look aloft, man. Our quarry was almost to the cross trees, clambering up the shrouds with a smartness no sailor has ever come to, her yellow body cut by the moving shadows of the rat lines. An odd sight against the mat of the night. McCord closed his mouth and opened it again for 2 words. By gracious! The following instant he had the lantern and was after her. I watched him go up above my head, ponderous swaying climber into the sky, come to the cross trees, and squat there with his knees clamped around the mast. The clear star of the lantern shot this way and that for a moment, then it disappeared, and in its place there sprang out a bag of yellow light, like a fire balloon at anchor in the heavens. I could see the shadows of his head and hands moving monstrously over the inner surface of the sail, and muffled exclamations without meaning came down to me. After a moment he drew out his head and called, All right, they're here! Heads, there below! I ducked at his warning, and something spanked on the planking a yard from my feet. I stepped over to the vague blur on the deck and picked up a slipper. A slipper covered with woven straw, stuffed and soled with a matted felt, perhaps a half-inch thick. Another struck somewhere abaft of the mast, and then McCord reappeared above and began to stagger down the shrouds. Under his left arm he hugged a curious assortment of litter, a sheaf of papers, a brace of revolvers, a gray kimono, and a soiled apron. Well, he said, when he had come to deck, I feel like a man who's gone to hell and come back again. You know, I come to this place where I really believed about the cat. When you think of it, by gracious, we haven't come so far from the jungle after all. We went aft and below and sat down at the table as we had been. McCord broke a prolonged silence. I'm sort of glad he got away, poor cuss. He's probably climbing up a wharf this minute, shivering and scared to death, over toward the gas tanks by way he was swimming. By gracious, now that world's turned over straight again, I feel I could sleep a solid week, poor gar. Can you imagine him, Ridgway? Yes, I broke in. I think I can. He must have lost his nerve when he made out your smoke and shimmied up there to stow away, taking the ship's papers with him. Would have attached some profound importance to them. Remember the barbarian 8,000 miles from home? Probably he couldn't read a word. I suppose the cat followed him. The additional source of food. He must have wanted water badly. I should say, he wouldn't have taken the chances he did. Well, I announced, at any rate, I can say it now. There's another mystery of the sea going to pot. McCord lifted his heavy lids. No, he mumbled. The mystery is that a man who has been to sea all his life could sail around for 3 days with a man bundled up in his top and not know it. When I think of him peeking down at me, playing off the damn cat, probably without realizing it, scared to death, by gracious, Ridgway. There was a pair of funks aboard this craft, eh? Wow. Yeah, I could sleep. I should think you could. McCord did not answer. And by the way, I speculated, I guess you were right about Bjornson, McCord. That is, his fooling with the foretop? He must have been caught all of a bunch, eh? Again, McCord failed to answer. I looked up, mildly surprised, and found his head hanging back over his chair and his mouth open wide. Finally, he was asleep. Dun, dun, dun. This was the story of the yellow cat. It would be interesting to have a conversation with you guys about how that story meant to you. And it was The Yellow Cat by Wilbur Daniel Steele in the public domain. And it was published in a book in 1922. I find it so interesting to have something be written well before maybe even our grandparents were born and it still be understandable and relevant. Now, of course, those of you who are seafaring would understand all of the different parts of the ship, the masts and the trees being those crossbars that hold up the mast, and the top part being up inside the upper sail. And it would be great to have a discussion, make sure everybody understood what it was about. But basically, the man that was retelling his story to us, the big mystery, why was this ship abandoned? Not once, but twice. And the first time there was a parrot found on board, the second time this yellow cat. And the ghostly apparitions and ethereal nature attributed to this cat. And what it might be doing on this ghost ship. And what they really think happened between the crew. Do you think, Msoul, that the cook had survived? And if you had to rename the ship for the third time, hoping to christen it to have a blessed voyage the next time forward, what would you name it? So the story of the Yellow Cat was published in a book of stories called Masterpieces of Mystery in 4 volumes, Ghost Stories, edited by Joseph Louis French. Published at the time by Doubleday, Page and Company, Garden City, New York in 1922. Printed in the United States. And it is in the public domain. We're allowed to copy it, give it away, reuse it, retell it. No cost. You can find it online as an ebook as well. I found this tale fun and interesting, especially because I like yellow cats. My yellow cat, I named her Jade. My other yellow cat, I named her Topaz. Because of the colors of their eyes. They were the quietest, watchful kitties in all the world that I've ever known. I know they tend to have a rambunctious reputation, but not mine. They were very well behaved. Well, Msoul, usually in this time of the show, Tuck In and Chill, if there were live viewers who wanted to chit-chat or share their own ghost stories, they would be open to do it. If you wanted to talk about ideas for upcoming show sources, soon we're going to be putting Res Me Please onto a party bus. We're going to be working on that. And you know, I've been busy in the past week. Instead of making memes, I do have a couple more scripts for the Ramblings of a Death Knight. I hope you're enjoying those. And if there's any topics you'd like me to touch on, let me know. Your wish will become my command. And not so much meme creating, but I've been in the mood for writing songs. I haven't sat down and been productive with making songs since March, but I've had a good little run at making a couple new songs, turning them into my thematic show songs, trying to build my branding up a little more. I'm evolving into my brand. These aesthetics have always been there for me, and I've collected a whole set of different bedroom scenes to use in my Tuck In and Chills. If you have a favorite, let me know. I think I did really well in the lighting here, but I always, just like my cooking shows, like to put little Easter eggs inside the settings so you can see the ingredient or the key pieces of the stories. And if there's a particular set of stories or a writer or a style that you would like to hear, let me know. Tonight's choice was because Hero Flame, the very first to ever talk to me in a live stream, in my first year of streaming, Hero Flame, shout out to you, like stories set on the water in boats. And they live near water, so that makes perfect sense. And I hope you enjoyed this story tonight. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sick. Don't worry about me. I forgot to bring water for the first time in 3 years. A story on the water, and I have not a drop to drink. Well, doesn't that sound familiar to people who spend their time in boats? Well, we've got plenty more where this came from, many stories to fall back on, but I'm always looking for new ideas, and I may or may not get started on writing some little choose your own adventures again. I haven't done one in a little bit. I did a whole bunch of that back around Christmas time and New Year's. But it's been a different kind of a summer, and I'm starting to return to OG formats while also splitting my time now between Twitch and YouTube, and I think I've got a pretty good pattern. I gave up gaming nights here on YouTube side on Thursdays and instead do it on Wednesdays, and that's partly because of the different workshops that I've been doing Tuesdays and Thursdays this month. I'm heading off to the local library where we're doing cooking shows, art classes, sip and hangouts, and always searching for new ideas. I have collected a whole bunch of assets to make future meditation videos of nature, and I've caught basically spring and summer now. I've even started catching not only insects but some animals that I randomly come across on my walks. And of course, I've been working on my health this year. I've been inventing different recipes. Some of them won't make it to my channel, but sometimes they will. I was thinking of bringing back the monthly guild meeting for the last Saturday of every month. I'm going to start that this month. And so that means on Saturdays, I'll be on Twitch for the first 3 Saturdays. And then on the 4th, I'll come back to YouTube, which is where I used to do it, just to update everyone on all the changes. Because I now have my pre- and post-show screens. And I now have theme music for each of my nights. I have special theme music for Tekken and Chill nights now as of today. And I have my special theme music that I brought in this week for my cooking show on Tuesdays. And for every other night, you guys know I've made so much music that I always keep switching it up. And just so you know, I am trained. I think I mentioned it in the past around March, April, when people were asking me. I am classically trained in reading and playing music on piano and the electric harp. I used to be on the electric harp. Everybody learns from the recorder when they're a kid. That's so gross. And I've also been a part of choirs where I would teach people how to do xylophone or keyboard, synth, and because it's piano, the right hand, the guitar, and I had one bass player once, but it's all to me the right side of the right hand of the piano, and I know how to write the stuff. And back in my first year, the first 2 summers, I was trying to learn and took those courses for using different programs to try to take music notes and invent your own songs, because I was trying to develop my own ability to make my own songs for my meditation videos. And it took so many hours to get very short, like few seconds of stuff, and I often didn't like what I was creating, but I found a new way because I keep trying to learn. And as I'm going, I'm working on my drawings, as I show you sometimes, or using Callida to color in some of these drawings. My voice reactive for Traxxer is half done in the sketching. I just really wanted to wait until I was in a good place to finish the second half, because I do have an idea in my head. But we know I have a problem with fitting one figure on one small paper, so I'm taping a second paper to it. And then I'm going to get it over to Traxxer. I'm going to color it in just very simply on it. And the dragon you guys last saw me draw, I've taken a picture of it to squish it down and make it fit onto one slide so I can color it in with Callida to use as a backdrop for some things we talked about months ago. But It's all in the works along with my Genshin Impact style version of myself that I drew, and I'm going to start bringing these things into life a little bit down the road. I've just found I've been very busy with work this summer, and I'm also starting to go through my new interviews, so yay! Applying for new jobs, trying to improve my circumstances always, and I'm starting to practice, playing the music. I know you're hearing more fuller band versions, but I've been talking to a group today to see if maybe they would like to use my music. They're new, they're unheard of so far, but there's something that might be happening with that a year from now. You guys may find out. And so I'm rushing to get, my music notes for my songs because, as you know, I'm piano trained, and you'll notice that in a lot of my songs that I use in my shows there is a piano under there or a synth for that, and I just use the right hand of the piano for the guitarist. And so and my connections with an electric guitarist who also knows a drummer, and they interchange a little bit. Now, I come from a background where I've got a sibling who can play drums and a sibling who can play like accordion, piano, organ, and I've got another sibling who can look at any kind of sheet music and play anything from the zither to the flute to the oboe to the cello to the violin. I have actually played a fiddle. I can get notes on a fiddle. And I played harp. I liked harp. I did electric harp. I know, it's so strange. And I've used I forget the name of the thing, but it's like a synth that you don't touch, but the way you move through it. I'll eventually remember the name of the thing. It's very different. I think people find them in science centers, where you can make music with rhythm, but it's used. This thing is used for sci-fi music and stuff. But anyways, it's gonna take me a while to get it all on paper because so much lives in my head. But I'm working on that, and like even today, I whipped up a cake right before I made a microwave cake today. Like kind of a mug cake thing. I'm just whipping things up. I don't have ingredient lists. I just throw things in, but I want to just slowly use up things, but carefully. I have things like icing sugar that I should really get rid of. I haven't used it in a while, but since I moved, it's been sitting there. So I'm slowly getting rid of that. My cocoa powder, my cinnamon, coconut shreds, and cocoa powder with flour. I have an almond flour, so that's less bad, I guess. Whipped it all together with 1 egg, a bit of water, a bit of milk. I use cream, like half and half cream, because it doesn't have the sodium that milk has. Milk surprisingly has too much sodium, to be honest with you guys. Anything above 5% is kind of risky. And then I half baked it, and then I re-stirred into the half-baked batter with orange infused honey. I've been into orange. I love citrus, as you guys know, but I have orange infused honey, so I use it up to make like ribbons inside of the cake. And then at the end, I knew it would be a dense cake, so once it was baked, I of course broke down the center and I poured in a little bit more of the cream, to make sure it was moist. Oh my god, it was amazing. Now I haven't written down um like measurements. I just kind of throw things together. But if you guys are interested in that one, it would have worked out better if I had self-rising flour. That's the only thing that was missing. So mine was a bit dense, but I liked it. It tasted really great, and being warm and freshly made, it's nice and soft. So I loved it. If you're interested in that recipe, let me know in the comments, and then I will bring that into one of my episodes. I know there are some gelatin recipes I made up. Maybe I'm gonna share one with you guys next Tuesday. But I've got so many recipes and menus. I'm trying not to collect anymore, but I keep getting interested. I keep getting inspired, so I keep collecting them. Plus, I'm going to Community Kitchen this summer. There's still 2 more sessions to do. We're visiting recipes from Turtle Island right now. And we're gonna work on the seaside next Thursday. So as I collect this stuff, I will share them back with all of you. And if you have a particular meme theme you'd like to see me working on. I'm kind of out of ideas right now. I'm taking a break. I did write a lot of stuff a couple months ago. Now I look at it thinking it's not so funny or I'm not inspired, but I'm like, what was I thinking, you know? There's a lot of that in my back pocket. But I feel like right now, if it's taking me too long to think of what was I thinking, then I'm just going to toss it. There's so many other things I can work on. So anyways, hopefully I was able to help you all have a nice break this evening. I hope you're having a wonderful, relaxing evening, having some fun. And you know, if you're watching this asynchronously and you're still listening, thank you so much for being here with me. Drop me a comment, give me a like. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. We'd love to grow. Spread the word. Share this video. And let me know what you think of my developing aesthetics. I mean, I've always loved this kind of thing, but I'm really happy with my finds. Anyways, I'm gonna head to my new end screen for Tuck In and Chill. That's what's gonna be used from now on for the next year or so. And I hope you love it because I know that I do. And I hope you love my new song. Just finished producing it today, and I've got let's say a grade 5 level music notation. I know a lot of people out there use a different kind of system. Is it tags or something like that is what you guys call it? So I haven't written out my music in that way. I'm actually using proper like Royal Conservatory of Music notation. But those of you, I don't know, those of us who took music that way will know what I mean. But I want to have a bass using something I know that to me is proper way, and then we can Guitar Hero it later with colored stickers. Because I know the range for C is anywhere. There's so many places on a guitar compared to piano has a middle C and that's the end of it. I'm doing things based on the middle C octave ranges. Anyways, I'm Venus Callida. I hope you're having a wonderful night out there. And if you're drifting off into dreamland, may they be sweet. May you have fun adventures. May your dreams come true. And may you wake up in the morning in the right side of the bed, ready for our next adventures. Alright, Msoul, have a wonderful evening. I can see you live tomorrow night gaming in WoW Universe as I help my guild and take my alts over to Dark Moon Fair to level up all their skills because I'm after the decor. I have maxed both my houses and I'm just helping the Alliance side tomorrow level up so that they can open up the decor. We've got only 2 of the goalposts opened. I think we can make it to the 3rd. We've got until Tuesday. Well, let's say Monday night. We got till midnight Monday night. And there's some guildies in there who really deserve to have some coffee makers. We need those espresso bars in our WoW houses. So I'll be working on that if you'd like to see that. Meet me 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time tomorrow night on Twitch. And I'll be back here in YouTube Universe at 6 p.m. On Sunday night for Dragonflight Follies. If you want to see my live show schedules, I posted it on Blue Sky, and I post it in the post area, my YouTube channel. I'm Venus Callida. Have a wonderful evening, my precious mortal soul, and have a fantastic weekend. You deserve it. Take care out there, and I will see you next time.
If you're awake, then tell me the stories that you know, the strange things in your world, the places that you go. If sleep is what you're seeking, then let the old tales play. I'll keep the lantern burning till the shadows fade away. So tuck in and chill, my soul. The night is yours to keep. We'll wander through the haunted halls and drift among our dreams. The world can wait beyond the door. The battles wait until, for now, we're safe beneath the moon. And this night we tuck in and chill.